Niggas will get you shot too. Come with the cleaning crew, you kick a bucket when they mob you. So fuck the streets and the system guarding elites. With military police, got people scary to speak. Tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. Can't nobody tell a better pain of glory. So tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. Better you than people finding out I'm more. So tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. Can't nobody tell a better pain of glory. So tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. Better you than people finding out I'm more. Tell your story, man.
Tell your story, man.
All right. Hello, everyone. This afternoon, we got Christina Williams. She's about to tell her story. I'm very excited to hear her story. This is a very fascinating, young, beautiful Black woman. So without further ado, Miss Christina, go ahead and get into your story.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. First, I like to thank God because no matter what happens, just thank God because the journey here has been crazy. Okay. And I want to thank y'all for sharing your platform with me. Thank you so much. So I grew up in Denver, Montbello, Colorado, small place. But I grew up with my mom and my dad. My dad was a minister, and my mom was one of the only Black salespeople, office salesperson in Colorado, and she was the best at it too. And so my parents really worked hard, and so they instilled that in my brother and I. And so I remember just like in third grade, I just was like, forget it. I don't get people. God help me. I just want to focus on you. And I felt like something came about, and it was like, okay, I got something for you. And we're going to do something great before, you give your last breath. We're going to do something great. And so I started getting into writing. And then middle school, I was writing and didn't get it. Then high school, I started film club, I should say. And it was a lot of hard work. And I thought, ooh, this is my time. And I said, no. And then I went to college. And when I went to college, out of 1,000 applicants or students, only 15 graduated. And I was one of them. It was really hard. And I thought, okay, this is my big shot. And it was like, nope, shut down. You're not going to California, nothing. And so then I went ahead and I just started becoming a teacher because that was available to me. I went ahead and studied and got my master's degree in special education. And then I kind of gave up on the dream, but I kept writing. I had already published a book. And then one day I kind of broke down. I was with a bunch of my students because my parents worked hard for me already. So they allowed me to go and live my dream. And then I was surrounded by a bunch of students, especially African-American young men, who were telling me and coming to me on my off period, on my breaks or whatever, talking about their low self-esteem and the fact that they were interested in committing suicide. To me, that was a blow in my face. Like, what? Why would you even think, like, what's going on? Like, why are you considering that avenue? And a lot of it was because, one, their self-esteem was so low, they thought they were nothing but their grades. And two, none of them, absolutely not a single one of them knew that there was a Black king, that their history came from something other than slavery. So when I asked them what they wanted to be, it was always blonde hair, blue eyes, and this is high school. And so for me, I was like, no, that's not going to sit. So I constantly was talking to them about how important they are and where mathematics, like most high school mathematics, comes from Africa. So most secondary mathematics comes from Africa. We should already have pride in that alone. And it's crazy how much information we have spread and how many books we've written and how many records we've broken And yet here we have these kids thinking that they're nothing but descendants from slaves. And so for me, that was a kicker. It hit me really hard, and I was like, no, 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 we can't do this. But then I realized I couldn't reach all the kids I needed to by sitting in the classroom. And I thought, okay, well, let me just keep, working in the school. Let me just keep talking to these kids and doing what I can to help. Then suddenly it hit, bam. It was like God said, now's the time. And I was like, are you sure? We just bought a house. We have 2 kids under the age of 2. My husband and I got married 4 years ago, so it's still kind of a new marriage, and we've got 2 cars, a dog. We're like, financially, I was doing pretty good. So I was definitely an equal breadwinner with him. And I called him up. I asked him, I said, what do you think I should do? I just got like this feeling that to let it all go. And so February 22nd of 2020, I let go of my job. And then COVID hit. And then so many things happened after that. And all I could hear was God continuously saying, "Write, write, write. You have to write." And so, somewhere along the line, Mansa, Black King, came out of it. Mansa is about Mansa Musa, who is he's the richest man that has ever existed. He's worth approximately $400 billion, and you actually cannot find anyone in history who's worth $400 billion. Like, it just nobody. The To put it in perspective, the richest man today is the owner of Amazon, and he's worth 188 billion. So he's not a droplet in Mansa Musa's bucket. And then Mansa Musa's older brother was Mansa Abu Bakari the second, and he traveled. He actually got 200 ships, tried to travel over to South America. That was a failed attempt. And then he decided to board the next group and sent 2,000 ships of gold, him and servants and gold, over to South America. And they have found plenty of evidence of him landing over there. So I thought that those two would pretty much cover what my students needed, which is our young Black students and our young Hispanic students need that positive reassurance that they are smart and that they come from something great. So I don't know. I guess I could say this. There's one thing that really got me to that was the kicker as to why I should have, let go of my job and everything. And that was I went to no, I'm not going to say names. I went to a meeting that held all the teachers in the districts together. And I went to the wrong one because I was late trying to drop off my kids. So I went to one that actually it had more of the Caucasian teachers, as you could put it, I guess, for more of like the public schools that are more South and more Western. And so I went there and I sat down, and and one of the statistics that was presented to me was that, and maybe it was just the way she said it, but it irked me. She said, basically, African American students, even the top African American students and the top Hispanic students, score less than the mentally retarded Caucasian students, in all categories. And for me, I disagree with that. I think that like, in don't get me wrong, I'm a special education teacher. I think that disabilities are just a way to say that, okay, I may not be great at that, but I got a lot of abilities, okay? So, but that didn't stick well with me because I felt like I see a lot of intelligent African American students. I see a lot of intelligent Hispanic students, and I don't think anyone I don't think that's fair to say a person who has an intelligence disability is scoring higher or making better grades or achieving a better academic success than the top of an African American or a Hispanic. Something's got to be off. And to say that, I think it was disappointing to me, because I felt like that information should not be shared unless it's dead true. And I've seen some intelligent, just crazy, amazing, smart kids that are like geniuses. So I just disagreed with it. And to me, I was like, okay, we have to go and get Mansa Musa out there. We have to go and get some books out there. We have to do something. We have to see ourselves. So the ultimate goal.
I have a question before you move on real quick. I have a question for you, Miss Christina.
Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. So my question is, when it comes to the education of our young Black boys and Hispanic boys, do you think that there's like a disconnect in between, Westernized education and, education that will actually reach our youth?
Mm-hmm. I do, 100%. I think the disconnect is mainly in the fact that our curriculum does not match the tests. Sitting down with students and actually trying to teach them, basically the curriculum that is set for them for the year never really matches the actual standards that they're being tested for in a lot of the standardized testings. As I don't know if you guys know now, but you have to pass the SATs to graduate now. And the SAT curriculum is so far off of the curriculum that is being taught in our schools. So how can you pass a test if you're not being taught the information?
I got one more question.
That's happening in a lot of urban schools.
Uh-oh.
Absolutely.
Okay. So my next question is, I took a class called Black and Latino Children, and basically we're looking at the statistics of how Black and Latino kids do prior to going to high school, prior to going to middle school. Like they're excelling when they're in when they're in their elementary education. But then when they get to their the midway, in high school, at 7th and 8th grade, they start to decline in education, and that's when they want to deem them as being, mentally challenged or having some type of learning disability. And I kind of want to see what you think. Why do you think that is, where that decline becomes factual and something that's actually happening to them? Like, why is it happening?
So thank you. Amazing question. Thank you. That is like where my heart lies, actually. I've done a lot of research on that. Along with my husband, we're very passionate about the school system and what is going on in the school system. It's a system. It's a messed up system that has been put in place. We tend to forget that we are about 50 years off from people being hosed down. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, yes, we're in that puts us around the 70s, but people were being hosed down and attacked for their rights just to get education. These people the people who set up the school system, if you ever usually Google them or look at them, look them up, a lot of them are pretty old. A lot of them are around that age group to where they still have those thoughts, those preconceived notions of who we are and how they need to stop the African Americans from getting powerful. So those systems are still in place. The fact that we call this a prison pipeline for African American males, the fact that we can predict what a person's going to do before they even turn 5, that's because it's a system set up. In 3rd grade, you're considered as this wonderful little boy. It's all good. And then next thing you know, you start making worse grades. You're the class clown. You're because think about it. When you're in third grade, you start growing. Our African American young boys start growing. They start getting taller. They start, moving differently. And so all of a sudden they become from this innocent child to a threat. And I see it in classrooms. I actually sat down and I had a lead teacher, and she leaned over to me. She was like, she says, it was really racist. I forgot but it was against Hispanic boys. But she said, well, you shouldn't get upset about it. You're Black. And I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't mean it's okay. So these teachers, there's a lot of these teachers who are teaching our youth, and they don't know that they're actually, well, I think they do know it, but I think a lot of the times they're forced to start thinking of these children differently because we mature faster. And I think that's where that disconnect comes from, because it's a legit thing. When you have a teacher in a classroom, that teacher has a lot more power than you think. I remember grading some papers before, and I was like, I don't know. And I just started giving them grades. You have a lot more power than you think as a teacher. And so you have these people who have sole power over the classroom. And they have this young little boy who's acting differently than what they're used to. And so you can give them grades based off of that if you want to. I've watched people do it. And so and it's also, there's a lot of things that happen. Our society changes. The young boys grow up and they start seeing things, and they start getting influenced by media and pop culture. You can even say their housing situations, their family situations, whatever situations that are going on in their lives are happening a lot of the times at this time. And so that's affecting them in school, out of school, their behaviors. And one thing that I, as an ex-special education teacher, please be very careful before you put your child in any special education program. The reason why is because now when you get them on a specific learning disorder, or you put them on like some behavioral disability, now the FBI can always open their file. They are open forever. For the rest of their lives, they can be looked up like that. They have a file on them. And so these are things that I truly believe are systems to go and shut people down. Honestly, I really do. I think that there's a system out there that's just meant to stop people from progressing, because if we all progress, who's going to work?
Absolutely. We have a few questions. Mr. King Philip had a question, and then Mark, and then Elijah.
Is that Phil? Mr. King Philip? Can y'all hear me?
Hey.
Thank you for tapping in with us, Miss Christina. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask you, how has teaching changed for you as an educator versus when you were a student? How has your teaching style changed versus when you were a student? And I got a follow-up question as well.
Well, okay. I think that when I was a student, there was a lot more depth when it came to just how teachers would go the extra mile for a student. I remember in 5th grade, I was deemed bad for a long time. 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, whatever. And then in 5th grade, I had a teacher, Miss Walston, I'll never forget. My brother used to always get honor roll, and I never did. She decided just to give me honor roll for no reason at all. I was a C average student, no reason. She just decided to do it. And that day changed my life. From then, I started getting honor roll for the rest of my my schooling. And so I feel like the teachers in the schools that I taught, or that I learned under, were allowed more flexibility to to invest in children. So they're allowed to sit down and go off schedule and teach them something today because they felt it in their heart, you know? And you're able to learn some stuff, or they're able to look at the book and say, I don't think this book is telling the truth. Whereas now, as a teacher, there's not much wiggle room. I remember just recently, last year, we were having like, I was having like 2 or 3 meetings a day based off of my curriculum with a team lead teacher. So we were scheduling out our plans. We had to meet our plans. We had to document our plans. We were graded on our plans. We're graded on the students. The students grade us, and we're looking, and it's all, it's hard to step out of the lines. And a lot of the teachers that I spoke to were having a hard time with that. And it causes a lot of turnover and then a lot of inconsistency for our students. And that's one of the big things that I noticed from being a teacher and being taught.
And a follow up, you know, and to rub, not to steal G's thunder, you know, how old were you when you had your first Black teacher? Because you in Denver, we didn't have a lot of them coming up.
My dad was involved with everything. He was the president of work nights. This was way before he became a minister. He worked checking up on my brother and I. So he made sure that we went to a school where my elementary teacher was. When I stepped into school, I had an African American teacher. So that was pretty cool.
Thank you.
But then after that,
so my question. I'm sorry about that. So my question was kind of similar to G, so I'll just go ahead and show it. So she says, do you think having a Black teacher in a classroom changes or affects the narrative of Black students' educational path?
Absolutely. Absolutely 100%. Yes, I had a bunch of parents come to me and say, "Oh, I'm so happy that you're African American," because we can see that based off of, you go through the studies of when we were separated versus integrated, and you can see that there was a lot more interest in sciences and math and writing. There was a lot more inventions. Done by African Americans. And then as soon as we integrated, it felt like a lot of that creativity just dropped. And now you're seeing the stats that you're seeing now. So yeah, I think that it's very important to have an African American teacher for African American students.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. So
I love your questions. You have awesome.
Thank you. So I partially grew up in Alabama. That's where I went to high school, you know, did like a couple years of college there. And at this high school, most of the teachers, not all of them, were Black. I know my science teacher was Black. I had a few other teachers that were Black. And for some reason, sometimes it felt like the Black teachers went harder than the white teachers on me because, you know, I don't know if it was because they felt like there was like they had higher expectations or what that was. So when you have that, when you're looking for that experience, you're thirsting for that experience of having a Black teacher and it's not what you expected it to be like. How do you think that affects the students themselves? Because I feel like, you know, that if you get a teacher who you're like, oh, I'm excited, this is about to be different than what I've been used to as far as like, you know, white teachers teaching me their white supremacist standpoint on, you know, curriculum. And I have a Black teacher, but that teacher is reinforcing that same narrative. How do you think that affects students of color, especially when it's coming from somebody that looks like them?
Um, that's a great question. I think, and they're all great questions. Sorry, but I've never. Well, actually, I have experienced that once in college. So, yeah, I truly believe that that's a letdown. It feels like a letdown, unfortunately, when you have teachers who have that same it's narrative. It's just like I don't know. This was basic. This is not an intelligent response, but I think it's funny. It's like if you walked in the store and you wanted a chocolate chip cookie, but it not a chocolate chip cookie, a Oreo, right? And you're like, oh yeah, I want that just normal Oreo, and it's got like lemon in it. And you bite in it, you're highly upset because it looks like it's the normal. You look like you're gonna get something out of it, but it's something totally different than what you expected, or it's back to the same thing that you had back then, and it lets you down completely because then now you feel like you can't even trust someone who looks like you. Um, I'm a kingdom citizen, so I follow God 100%, and I think that He never intended for us to have false information in general. So whenever we have this information from white supremacy, we're really gathering lies and we're spreading lies. There is no supremacy. God gave all of us dominion over this world. It, there's no one better than somebody else. So it's not like turning and saying we're better. No one's better than anybody else. And when we get that, that's when we can really start talking. But until then, it doesn't matter what you're coded with, what color you're coded with. If you're giving false information, you're just as bad as the serpent back in Garden of Eden. That's what tripped us up from the beginning. You look at Adam and Eve, and you see that it all went downhill the moment we got false information, and I think that's the whole problem around the world is false information. We keep getting false information, and that turns into hurt, which turns into lies and cheating and stealing, and all of it stems from false information. I'm sure if you have any hurt in your heart, you can trace it back to a lie. It's some kind of false information that's being tossed out there, and that's where we get our pain from, and that's why we're in this position we're in right now. So white supremacy from anyone is automatically a lie, and it hurts people in any situation. And that's kind of what I think. I hope I answered your question correctly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, and I love what you said as far as like, a lie is the main thing that hurts us because a lot of times we look at the information that we're given automatically, especially when it's from somebody that's supposed to be teaching us, our quote unquote people, the same people that are oppressing us are teaching us. And then, we take everything that they say as the truth. And we kind of touched on it prior to, this vast of like, false information and like, the history that we're being told is not necessarily, the history as it happened, it's not as it happened as it's written. So yeah, I loved your response. I like the Oreo scenario. That definitely added a little bit more flavor on it.
Oh, I tasted it too. I was like, sounds good.
But yes. So if you want to continue where you're at in your story.
Elijah.
Oh yeah, Elijah had a question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know you can unmute me.
Hi, Elijah.
How you doing, Miss Christina? Can you hear me?
Good and you. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So my question would be to you in particular. How would you describe the importance of not just Black teachers, but also the importance of how young boys act in the school system? Because I think one thing that is interesting that I feel like plagues our communities a lot is the feminization, especially like with different things that are being pushed and certain agendas in the school that are being pushed right now that are controversial, if it's same-sex bathrooms or whatever side you land on. Assuming that you are a Christian, we don't even know nowadays being a Christian. But
Right.
but real talk. But the thing is what's your take on the feminization of black men in the school system and how it's affecting our children and on their day and day life?
Uh, Great question as well. This is gonna get me in trouble. No. My, my take on it is not a popular take. I do push this. I'm okay with women's rights. I'm okay with women's. Um, 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 I'm okay with us being happy for being females. However, I think that males should have the same ability to voice their opinions. But that I've noticed has been shut down a lot. Like if a male feels uncomfortable going to a gender a bathroom with a girl who decides that she wants to be a male, he gets shut down immediately. If a guy says that, I feel like I can't sit in the seat anymore, he gets shut down. That happens a lot of the times when you look at elementary schools, because I worked throughout elementary, and I've tried to push for more, basically more opportunities for boys to get their energy out, because they're not. We treat little boys in school like they are just bad little girls. um Females generally are able to sit longer. Females are able to generally pay attention longer to a person who's speaking to them. Females have the ability to do these things. Males do too, but it's not naturally in their nature. They like to run, play, jump, and girls do too. It's just that we're different. And I think I'm just so frustrated with our society of trying to unify everything rather than expressing the joy of being different. I'm happy to be a female, and I'm happy my husband is the way he is. He wants to jump off things sometimes, and I just look at him like, well, how did that feel? But like that's just the difference between our sexes, and I think that males are, unfortunately, especially black males, are having to take the back seat of everything. Um, they get no rights when everyone else does. Uh, they ask for something, they don't get it. I can say who I can sit here and claim I'm whatever I want to, but if I'm an African American male, they're like, well, yeah, but, and there's always that excuse, unless you claim, and I don't know you guys' stance on this either, but unless, unfortunately, I've noticed in the industry, in the film industry, and in the work industry that I've seen, unless you claim that you are in, I'm not upset with anybody, whatever, just unless you claim that you are a homosexual male, they don't listen to you. And I've noticed that a lot. I've seen African American boys who say that they're gay, and then the moment they say that, then people's ears open up because they don't want a lawsuit. But when I see like an African American male that, for example, there's this one guy, he was just kicked out. He's 15 years old. He's kicked out of his mom's house. He had nowhere to sleep. Everyone, when I stopped class to take him down there to be talked to, because he was sad, he was upset, he was frustrated. Nobody wanted to hear him. Nobody cared at all. It was like, okay, and then we'll take care of this later. More like, I had another boy, and he was a homosexual, and he said, I just need to talk to somebody. He was able to leave the classroom, do whatever he wanted to. They were able to take him aside into the office, talk to him, and it's sad because I feel like that shouldn't be, if it shouldn't be based off of your sexuality that suddenly his voice is now heard. And I also think that it's coming from the feminine dominancy, where it's like, you're a male, you can handle it, but the moment that you act outside of that testosterone male, then we can listen to you, and all of a sudden you have options and you have this or that, and I just don't think that's fair. I don't know.
Definitely, definitely. So, without, any, thank you for answering all of the questions. But if you would like to continue with your story, that would be wonderful. I believe you were talking about your transition from special education into a different field.
Yes, thank you. If I could go to that real quick. Yeah, I finally got a book that I published about earlier this month, and it's going pretty well. The sales are going pretty well. Basically, it's about Mansa Musa, and it's meant to help young African American males to understand and know that they are not only amazing, intelligent, great, phenomenal beings, and that slavery was literally, it was a horrific thing, of course, but it's a drop in the bucket for how many successful and wonderful things that have happened in the past. And I feel like our young African American males definitely need a boost. I feel like a lot of African American males went forward in the film industry and kind of allowed, or not allowed, but helped African American women to do their thing, our thing, like Scandal and all that kind of stuff. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of how they portray us or how we're still being portrayed, I do feel that at least we have a lead role where we're still really waiting for a positive African American lead role. We do have Black Lightning, but realistically, was he the lead? I feel like China and McClane was the lead, you know. But anyway, I feel like with Mansa, you get to see an African American male who has testosterone, who has fears, who has he can be angry without somebody thinking it's different. You know, I think it's good to show all of these emotions, show all of the success stories he has. My goal is to write 10 episodes and then try to get a film crew together. And I want the narrative to be genuine. I want the narrative to be from, like, almost like FUBU, for us bias. You know, I want all the department heads, that means the producers, the directors, the casting agents, all of them to be African American. Now, does that mean the whole crew is Black? No, of course it could be a boom mic and, but the heads, I need them to be African American or African or of some African descent, so then we can have, so then we know that they're, and not only that, they also have to see the vision we have for the story. It's time to get some positive Black role models out there. We need Black love out there as well. So he, of course, we have a love interest, Inari, she's Black. And we have two successful kings who are Black, and we're following their stories. This needs to be on TV. Reason why is because we don't, when's the last time you really saw a real Black king on TV? You haven't. You've seen Coming to America, which Coming to America 2 is coming out, and it's a comedy. And then you've got Black Panther. It's fictional. Yeah, does somebody have a question or something?
Yeah, I got a question real fast. To that extent, with looking at Black love and it not being something that we truly see, all right. Coming back, you said, how did you say your parents were married? And if you did, how long have they been married?
Yeah. They were married 25 years before my dad died. They were married.
Okay. So with that being, okay. So with that being the case, and so you actually saw what Black love is supposed to look like and feel like. What was your, I'm asking that to the point too, when the crack epidemic came through and everything and swept up the city and stuff like that, how did your parents avoid that? Because I know a lot of parents, they ended up being crackheads and all that other stuff and addicts, you know what I mean? How did your parents avoid that epidemic?
Before I answer that one, I say anytime you see drugs introduced into a neighborhood that didn't have that problem prior, it's dropped off. That's 100%.
Oh yeah.
That's one of those systems. We even can see that Nixon. It's in my book. I have the link. Nixon even said blatantly that he had two problems: blacks and hippies. And so he said, as long as I can relate them to a drug, I'll be fine. So for hippies, it was marijuana. For blacks, it was heroin. And then what did he do? He turned it around and pushed the war on drugs. So we know that that was a system put in place to go and bring us down. Luckily, my dad was one out of 12. So there was a lot of things going on. But my granny really pushed for all of her boys to be in athletics or something. So out of 12 kids, she got some pretty awesome turnouts. She made them read. She made them study. One of them owned his own restaurant. One of them was an NFL football player. One of them was which the NFL football player, unfortunately, he got shot in the back of his head by a Ku Klux Klan member, because he was currently at the time dating a Caucasian woman, and so it's just. And then my dad was an entrepreneur at heart. He was a realtor. He was at one time, and he worked 5 jobs. I remember one time just watching my dad run out and go and work 5 jobs, 5. And then he turned around and he gave it all up, and he decided to be a minister. And he was one of those real old school ministers. And so the reason why they didn't really get into all of the, I would say like the crack and the drug epidemics was because they had a focus on something higher than that. And I encourage everyone to have that focus on something higher. Look, there is a creator, okay? There is a creator, because we are creations. So as creations, whoever the creator is, you want to go to the person who made the car. You know what I'm saying? You want to go to the manufacturer to go and figure out how you're going to work this car. So for me and my family, what I saw from my mom and my dad, they always put God first. My dad would always say this: love, black love, or love, whatever kind of love, is like a triangle. You put God at the top, here you are, and here's your spouse. And the closer you get to God, the closer you get to each other. He would always say that in marriage counseling. My husband and I do the same path to go back to the manufacturer. It works. You got to get closer to God, because then your arguments start dwindling, because you're on the same, you get it. You're on the same page. You have a tiebreaker, your morals start aligning, your ideas start aligning, your positioning starts aligning, your goals start aligning. Whenever you put God first, then everything has to fall in underneath that umbrella, and things start working out. And because I truly know he exists, it works out better than you ever thought. It's just like, oh shoot, I didn't pay the such and such today, and he's like, I got it. Or it pops up out of nowhere, because we know God's already got a plan. Like, stepping out on the promises of God, the creator, allows his creations to actually start working. It's like, it's a system built for you to succeed, but you have to use the system correctly. So that's what I got out of my parents, 25 years. It's God.
Okay, I got a follow up to that one, because that was a powerful question. Thank you for asking that, Mr. King.
Okay.
But my question is, there's something about Black love that feels good and it looks good to me. Like, it feels good and it looks good, because when I see it, I love seeing it. It just feels good to me. So when it comes to the way that, media and movies and all these different forms of propaganda are set up, because now, at first it was like, okay, there was like misogyny laws, right? To where like Black people and white people could not, interact or coexist like that. But then like those laws got reversed, and now for the longest, even then society was not pushing that narrative of, okay, it's okay for a Black man to be with a white woman. Like that was never something that, was said to be okay. But then like now in this day and age, especially with this Generation Z that's growing up, that narrative and that image of a white man and a Black woman's being pushed, and a white man and a Black woman's being pushed. And I feel like I would love to hear your opinion as to why that is, and just you. And I would assume you're married to a Black man. Just want to know, how that makes you feel, and how do you think that affects the Black family structure?
Well, here is my husband.
All right.
So
Okay.
yeah, Black.
Okay.
But,
Nice to meet
no,
you.
That was funny because he walked. He was like, "No, I don't want to go on." But Black love. I mean, I even have a picture on the back of my book, and it has a picture of my husband and I. These are very important topics that I'm so glad you guys are asking. This is so important to get out there. Okay, so I'm sorry. I'm gonna go ahead and get my Dr. Umar on, because that's my dude right now. He's okay. Basically, the Black family survived slavery. The Black family survived, which I think slavery is a Holocaust. Okay, it was worse than slavery. There's a term for what slavery is, and that was packed on with so many things. I don't think it's worse than slavery. It was dehumanization. Yet we survived it with Black families jumping over brooms. And then you go ahead and you fast forward. We survived that. Now we're entering into the Great Depression and all that kind of stuff. And we survived that too. Black families. It wasn't until we started hitting the war on drugs. The moment we got into the war on drugs, now you start seeing the Black families split apart and break apart. And the reason why they're doing that is because we are strong together. And they still know that. And so what you're seeing is we're still enemy number one, unfortunately, and it's 2021. They're trying to break up the Black family. That's why you look at TV shows like Empire. The only Black couple on there has the biggest issues. That you can't find Black love on TV because they don't want to encourage the strength. That's where the strength comes from. When you have that good old Black husband and that Black wife and those Black children, that is power. That is power. My husband loves to say this all the time. He's like, the reason African American males were the only people who were hung on trees and what's that called? Emasculated, where you get your private part cut off. What's that called?
That's actually called
castration.
Castration. Yeah.
castration.
Thank you. They were castrated. Why were they castrated? Because an African American penis was
Big
a bigger
dicks.
gun in the world. He could literally have a baby with anyone, and that baby's Black. He can outnumber you with his penis. So because he can do that, he's a threat. Why would you? So they're trying to water everything down as best they can because he's quote unquote the threat. So with that, at the moment they realize that the power was in the Black family, then they start attacking the Black family, and they haven't stopped. Now they have to be discreet about it, and you just see it on every commercial. You can't even watch a commercial now with two Black people who are just happy to be together. They always got to be doing something, and there's always got to be somebody else. It just is. Even the TV shows, you just don't see it anymore. And the reason why it feels so good is because it's so empowering. It's empowering to know that your African American male, your counterpart here, loves you after they've called you as a Black female loud, ignorant, um, 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 uh, whatever you can call it. They've literally put us down so bad. And then they turn around and they took men, Black men, and they start throwing them in jail, planting crack in our neighborhoods, and then taking them to jail and then separating them. Then they swooped in to our African American females and said, "You don't need him. I'm going to make you financially just fine. Here's some unemployment. Here's some." And I'm not saying, look, I'm on unemployment right now, so I'm not talking about nobody. But here's housing. Here's food on the table for your kids. Here's all these supplements, these government supplements. So when he gets out, he's worthless. He's worthless. Because back in that time, in the 1940s and 50s and 60s and 70s, it was a man who his job was what? To go to work, to go and make the money, to go and make sure that way you could have food, clothing. The government said, "I got you." Uncle Sam said, "I'll pay for all that." So he's irrelevant. And now you've got him sitting there. He's come back from being charged for something. Who knows what happened in jail? He feels emasculated. He has no place. Where is his place? So the only thing an African American male now has is his strength and his rage, which is exactly what they're counting on. That's why you hear all these women talking about, "I got mine. I got my money here. I got my thing here." And it's okay to be independent. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't shove it in his face when he's stepping out in a position where they're not going to give him the opportunities that they're giving you. And notice a lot of the opportunities that you get financially. I was talking to my homegirl the other day. She's in a woman's. It's not a women's shelter, but it's like a woman's type, like housing authority or something like that. And you can have the housing to shelter your kids, but he can't come. That's what it is. It's a setup. It's a setup to keep us apart because we don't go nowhere when we're together. We're as strong as a tree with thick roots when we're together. But when we're broken apart, we're weak. And they know that because they've already told you and I that we're not this, we're not that, we're not blah, 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 and no man really wants us because of this, and this. We have to build our self-esteem from ground zero. And then our Black males, I mean, that's what it was the other day. -9, below zero. They have to go and build themselves up from underneath because they can't get it. They got employers who don't like them. They've got teachers who don't like them. They've got, you know what I'm saying? They turn on the TV and they're considered as overbearing, or they're just too much. They're just too masculine for TV. I mean, you know what happened to the Nat Turner movie? They took off the images from Nat Turner, Birth of a Nation, which they'll keep the original Birth of a Nation that with blackface. They'll keep that. But the one that's about Nat Turner and him and a bunch of Black male slaves running towards the camera with pitchforks, they'll cut off. That is a banned image. Why?
Because to keep us mentally weak. I love the fact that you brought out that point because I seen Birth of a Nation on YouTube the other day and I watched it and I was like, there's blackface in this. I wanted to report it, but you can report it. They're not gonna take it down.
Forced to watch that. No. In film school, I was forced to sit there and watch it. I was the only Black girl there, and all of my white counterparts, as soon as the lights turn on, they turned around and looked at me and started asking me questions about how I felt about it. I've had professors sit there and ask me, "Who reads?" And he was specifically looking at me because he thought I didn't read. He literally made us drop our hands if we didn't read. And I'm like, I read. I don't know what you're talking about. That's why I'm here. But that racism, we tend to move too fast. We think that racism is gone, and it's not.
Okay. Thank you so much for answering that question, and thank you for bringing out that movie, because a lot of people don't even know that that movie exists. They know of Birth of a Nation when Nat Turner, as I forget that man, the actor's first name, but his last name is Parker. He is a good actor. Nate Parker. I love him. But I'm gonna go ahead and
Yes.
toss it to Elijah because I know he had a question.
It's off topic, and I don't like asking questions off topic. But knowing, like, you know, the pandemic we're going through right now and how it's impacting and affecting the Black and brown communities, how do you feel about, you know, them pushing heavily? Because, you know, Black and brown kids, especially Black kids, are real taboo with vaccinations. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to us taking those vaccines, how we feel towards taking the vaccines. What's your opinion being an educator, and how they're pushing that into the school system, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure. I am honestly, that is one of those things that I don't have a strong opinion on. Um, I Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I feel like every time I go to school, I get sick anyway. It's just gonna happen. I do feel that if they're going to bring all these students back into enclosed environments and we've got COVID running, it's of course it's going to spread like wildfire. So you probably need, I think vaccinations are something that are already required anyway. For a lot of vaccinations, I should say, are required before you even enter school. So it's nothing new. It's something that I'm sure that they can go ahead and do. My mom actually, right now, she's a receptionist for the, which drives me crazy. I can't believe I keep saying this. She's a, sorry, she's got her master's in, um, she's got her master's in, what's it called? Something. Anyway, they laid her off, and now she's a receptionist for the University of Colorado, and they basically told her that these vaccines are actually proteins, that they aren't the actual COVID-19 like most of the other shots where you're actually injecting yourself with the virus, letting it be fought off by your antibodies, and then injecting yourself some more. They're telling us that it's actually proteins that are going through your blood and strengthening your antibodies or something along those lines. So they're not infecting, because they're not infecting you with the actual virus. I don't see anything wrong with it, but I personally think anytime we mess with our genes, uh, we just have to be very careful because things can happen. You can get sicker for it. So again, I'm on the fence with that. I'm like, I don't like tampering with genes, but at the same time, it's something that's been mandatory for years. So
Okay. I know G had a question. We kind of been neglecting her question. I just want to make sure everybody got to ask their question, doing it in order. But she said, I have two questions. One, what was the household structure like as far as the roles your parents played?
okay, you want? Oh yeah, sure. The household structure my parents played. Basically, my mom was more of the. Believe it or not, they kind of switched off, which is cool. My mom worked, my dad worked, but they were just always flexible. They realized that life was more of a consistent change. So let's say, like, I know that when I was 13, we got hit by a scandal, actually, and it took a lot of my dad's money. So my mom hopped onto work and worked extra hard and overtime, while my dad actually spent time working in the churches and stuff like that. But then when something else happened, they switched roles again, and then he was more of the bread and just constantly be flexible. There was a time in life where my mom decided to stay home. My dad started working 5 jobs just to make sure she could. So it was really just and sometimes he would cooking, or she would always cook, but he would clean up after her. So it was really just a yin and a yang. They would always try to make sure things got done. By just doing it, seeing that the other partner couldn't do it or wouldn't do it, and then jumping on it. And I thought the kind of roles, they always changed, but they were really just trying to make the household, flow.
Okay. And the second question that she asked was, what things did your parents do to keep the romance alive in their marriage?
And I'm actually pause you right there, Miss Christina, because we are actually over on our time. And what we do is we like to look at a part 2. We like to go ahead and schedule and bring you in for a part 2.
Anytime. I'm definitely available.
That will be dope. Can I get somebody to close this out, please?
I guess, Mark, if you could, sir.
Absolutely. So, yes, thank you again for being such a wonderful guest this evening. At this time, if you just have just a last, little nugget or a token, you could just leave with us before you exit, what would that be?
Always check your information. No more lies. You don't lie, and check your information. Always.
Awesome.
Yes, and I just wanted to make sure to put her book right there. Definitely love the energy that she's bringing. Definitely check out her book. And thank you again so much for being our guest. You were awesome.
Thank you so much. It was such an honor.
Awesome. But at this time, we'd like to thank you by giving you our Malcolm famous 3 snaps. So we'd like to ask everybody to come off mute, and then you just sit back and enjoy the flowers. Please and thank you. But on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3.
Dang,
But yes, much love and respect. Thank you for the deep conversation and the jewels that you dropped today. We will be in touch with you for the part 2. And make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms. Malcolm Make a Chess Move, Malcolm Make a Culture Move, Virtual Artist Storytelling, Pushing Pawns. Got our Instagram at Malcolm303, our Pinterest at Malcolm303. Please subscribe to our YouTube at Make a Chess Move -Malcolm. And that would be all. Please Malcolm out there. And again, we will be in touch for your part 2. Y'all, Malcolm out there.
Malcolm out there.
Christina.